Are you ready to be drafted into a pointless war? Well, guess what? United States Congress and Senate both agree that maybe you should be drafted, and somebody is poking, trying to get World War III kicked off. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Chris Martenson, and this is your Peak Prosperity Scouting Report. It looks like it's Monday, June 24th. I wish I had better news. You know, I've been on this drumbeat for a little while. At Peak Prosperity, we just, listen, if the data changes, I'll change. But right now, here's the information we have. Let's take a look at this. This is not good information. So this happened yesterday. This is footage claimed to show the launch of the Ukraine ballistic missile attack. So these are ATACMS, ATACMSs. This is a missile system being given by the United States to Ukraine. And of course, Ukraine doesn't have the telemetry information, the targeting information, the satellite overhead information. But here is what happened this weekend. That, my friends, is what World War III looks like when it kicks off. We are at war right now. The only question for me is, when does it get into a much more kinetic phase than this? This is overt attacks. And so what happened? These missiles were sent down towards Ukraine, down toward Crimea. And what happened down in Crimea is that Kiev carried out a terrorist attack. So those ones are fired at night. Those were shot against what looks to be one of Russia's critical satellite communications facilities. So somebody is trying to blind Russia. And they're blinding them by hitting their over-the-horizon radars that are meant to detect incoming ICBM attacks. Who would want a blinded Russia so that Russia would not know or be able to tell or have as much warning that they are being attacked by ICBMs? That seems like a particularly risky and terrible idea to anybody with a functioning brain or moral center, and then blinding them with respect to their satellites. But one of these attacks launched from here, launched against a beach. And so let's look at the after effects of this. We had 4 dead, 151 injured, 2 of those dead children. They were at the beach, enjoying the beach that day, and there was an attack dropping cluster munitions on a beach. Yep, it's that disgusting. And by the way, let's see, where did I put that? Yeah, so from Kim.com, it turns out U.S. Air Force did direct this attack. There was a Global Hawk targeting, intelligence drones sitting off the shore there at the time of the attack. So this would have been, there was the attack right there on that beach. Here's a video of that attack actually happening. It's not best video, but boom, things are over pretty quick. So here's the thing. Did Joe Biden seek permission from Congress to start a direct war with Russia? Did Americans sign up for this? Did you vote? Did you vote for this particular war to get kicked off? And by the way, can anybody here articulate why this war? What's in the interest? What's the best interest? Like, how are you served in whatever country you live in by the United States initiating and prodding Russia until it can get the response it wants, and what the United States wants, apparently what the neocons want, what the Zionists wants? They want a war with Russia. They want to get this thing kicked off. I don't know why. I can't articulate it. I can't tell you what the end game would be. I can't tell you what the strategic mission of it would be. You should always go to war with a clear understanding of what's at stake, and also what's to be gained and lost, and also why it might end, right? And so there's no end to this war. The United States has been involved in perpetual wars for a long time. So let me set the stage for this. One of my favorite quotes by Maya Angelou is, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. When we look at how the United States prosecuted the war in Afghanistan, and then the embarrassing, humiliating way that it chose, and this was a decision, to exfil from Kabul airport instead of Bagram airport, leaving behind $85 billion worth of hardware for the Taliban, who immediately inked deals with China, who is now their best friend, and prosecuting all the minerals and wonderful mining operations that can be done because Afghanistan is rich in minerals. How did that happen? We really, I don't think, talk about enough the circumstances under which the United States chose to abandon its multi-decade allies and interpreters to horrific fates, right? Chose to abandon our allies, leaving in haste as if it was the fall of Saigon. There for 20 years. We were there for 20 years, and suddenly we have to leave in 2 weeks and make it a complete clown show? No, that was not by accident. And neither is this stuff. It is not by accident that the United States is poking and prodding right now. So somebody desperately wants war with Russia, a wider war. Now, who is that and why would they want that? Okay, so these are other things I'm going to talk about further with my subscribers back at Peak Prosperity. By the way, if you're not a subscriber at Peak Prosperity, you really should be. I will help you make sense of the world. I know you're busy. Listen, I don't know why. I wake up every day and I figure out what's going on in the world, and then I will tell it to you. And I will tell it to you, my promise, before you hear about it from other sources, almost always. Sometimes years in advance. I'm unfashionably early to some things. All right, so this is what we have to talk about, though, is breaking. This comes from Megatron here saying that Russian Ministry of Defense regarding today's massacre in Crimea by Ukraine with cluster munitions, quote, the U.S. is responsible for this massacre and they will get an answer. Poke, poke. The question is, we've been poking and going across Russia's red lines for quite a while now. The question is, when will we have crossed that final red line? And when will the neocon Zionist people get their final wish of some sort of response from Russia that they can then respond to and say, look, bad people, look at this totally unprovoked attack here that's happening. This is just how I see it at this point in time. And I know there's a lot of trolls out there and a lot of misguided people who think that somehow the United States is on the right side of history here and is promoting democracy, whatever that means, in Ukraine, which is a place that, let's just be clear, right? They've suspended elections. They've suspended churches. They've suspended speaking Russian, right? They've suspended free speech, elections, and religion. Is that what we mean when we say we're supporting our democracy, promoting our democracy? It's crazy talk. Obviously, there's other issues at play here that have nothing to do with democracy. Democracy is sort of retail level explanation. If you've fallen for that, so sorry, but you fell for just literally, you just got sold, a pair of Crocs for $400,000. You got burned. Sorry. It happens. All right. So the U.S. is responsible, says Lavrov, for this massacre, and they will get an answer. All flight missions for American ATACMS missiles are programmed by American specialists based on their own U.S. satellite intelligence data. So he's saying very clearly, listen, even if a Ukrainian technically pushed the button, it's irrelevant because everything prior to that button being pushed, supplying the missiles, programming them, supplying the targeting information, supplying the intelligence, knowing where, when, and how to route those around whatever Russian air defenses might be operating at that point in time. All of those things have to be done and coordinated. None of that's obviously done by Ukraine by itself. So all flight missions for American ATACMS missiles are programmed by American specialists based on their own U.S. satellite intelligence data, and they picked a beach with people on it and children. This was picked specifically by whoever it was that was targeting these things. Now, again, you didn't vote for any of those people making these decisions, guaranteed. Nobody was consulted. No, Congress can fluster and flap its gums all it wants, but it won't. We know that in Congress, those people get led into a SCIF, an SCIF, and they're showing something, presumably their own control files. And you know what happens next? Suddenly they sing the praises of why it's necessary to repel brutal aggression by targeting beaches with cluster munitions, whatever. They're lost as well. They are also retail level. Congress and Senate right now are the retail level in this particular story. They decide nothing. Sometimes they hold stern hearings and they make mouthy noises, but they are all bark, no bite. So leave them out of the equation. It's not them that are dragging this whole thing towards an inevitability of war and something in which Congress can rubber stamp the laws that will get you and your children or grandchildren, depending on your age, drafted into whatever this thing is that they seem to want to do. Here's a prediction. This is not going to go the way they think. Remember, these are the same people who told us we would be greeted with flowers in the street as liberators in Baghdad. Didn't happen. These are the people who are deluded into thinking that somehow we're the good guys and people like it when we exert our might around the world, but this is just self-congratulatory, masturbatory bullshit. Okay, So these same people are in power. They've done nothing but create disasters everywhere they've gone. That is their track record. You should expect more of that particular track record, only this time on steroids. This would be like asking Anthony Fauci to run the next pandemic for us, again, or the WHO. Once somebody shows you who they are, believe them. This is a disaster in the making. I'm totally against it. By the way, editorially, we're going to be so disappointed, we, the collective we, so disappointed in the next war because we have these people who are like, well, we had World War I, and that was kind of stimulative. We came out of World War I, and there was this great economic, rebound, right? And then World War II, same thing. It was fairly stimulative. In fact, you can find op-eds in the New York Times arguing that what the world kind of needs is maybe another war. They're fairly stimulative. Here's the problem. These people are nuts because they don't understand that to rebuild requires energy. And we don't have the same energy landscape that we used to have. The amount of net free energy per capita, per person, is shrinking. Even though we seem to have more oil than ever before, it's of a lower quality in terms of net energy. And this means full prediction. It's a longer story. Watch the crash course if you want to understand this in detail. Here's the problem. When we have this next war, it's going to mark the high water mark of the complexity of our civilization. Everything just gets harder after that. Things will be blown up that will never be rebuilt. We will have tendrils of economic complexity that will never reach those former moments of glory. This next war, when they finally get their way, when their wet dream finally comes to fruition, it will be the biggest disaster ever. Their names will all go down in history as the stupidest, dumbest, most illogical, irrational people in all of history. But they think that they are still in charge. They think that somehow they can control the uncontrollable. They don't understand the larger context of where we actually are and how complex systems like our economy, like our energy systems, like our political alliances, those have emergent behaviors, not controllable behaviors, not predictable behaviors or outcomes. They have emergent behaviors. You know what's going to emerge after this next war? What's going to emerge is the dawning awareness that that was it. That was the high point. Now you finally have the context for why I've named my company Peak Prosperity. We're going to hit a peak of prosperity. I want you to be prepared for that. I want you to understand that it's coming. And I want you to get as prepared as you can so you can be resilient as possible. We have at Peak Prosperity the #1 online resilience community because we understand something most people don't. The reason people will take steps towards securing their own prosperity, their own future, their own resilience has nothing to do with the data. We all have the data. We all have access to the same data. Most people aren't going to do anything with it. They won't take one step. They won't buy one gold coin or one silver coin. They won't plant one tomato plant. They won't put one extra can of whatever on the shelves of their pantry to deepen it up. They won't do anything until it's too late. And now why is that? Well, it has nothing to do with the data. What we understand at Peak Prosperity is that everybody has to go through what's called an adjustment reaction. It's an emotional reaction. You have to understand it for what it is, label it, name it so that you can tame it, so that you can still operate and make the decisions you need to make. And by the way, that is the essence of being an adult, making decisions with imperfect information. Do I know exactly how all this is going to turn out or when? Absolutely not. But I can add up the fingers of instability in this story, the steepening sides of a pile of sand. We can watch the steepenings happen. Eventually, the sand pile slumps. Can I predict when? No. Can I predict how big the slump is going to be? No. These are vital, foundational concepts of trying to understand how to live in a complex world surrounded by exponential functions, all of which combine into what we call predicaments, not problems, right? Problems have solutions. Predicaments have outcomes. So we have to manage those outcomes as best we can. That is the world we live in. Please, this provocation that we're just seeing right now that I've just reported to you, I need you to see it for what it actually is, not how it's being reported in CNN and not how the fifth generation bots from whatever 3-letter agency are trying to shape your impressions on Twitter. Oh, this is good. Crimea will revert back to who it belongs to, and Putin's finally getting what he deserved. Well, it wasn't Putin on that beach. It's kids. So you need to see this for what it is. And then hopefully with that, and if you come to Peak Prosperity and become a subscriber, we'll help guide you through that adjustment reaction so that you can do what you need to do. So if you're not taking action, You really should be. And I'm going to use that should word in a judgmental sort of way. Everybody should be securing their own future right now in terms of building up their resilience. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn back now to my subscribers, and we got to cover what's happening in Lebanon and some other warning signs and a few other things. All right, with that, thank you very much for listening. Please, 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 however you do it, get ready, get prepared, be resilient. Remember, it didn't have to be this way. Bye for now.